Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I'm your host, Brian Scott. And before we begin our discussion of Project Looking Glass today, I want to invite you to join the Reality Revolution community where you can take your journey deeper and you can become a more powerful manifester. We explore these principles like timeline shifting and quantum jumping and remote viewing every week through live coaching, meditations, courses, and a powerful group of people applying these ideas together. You can find the link in the description. You can just go to www.school.com/reality revolution. It's 1994. Somewhere beneath the Nevada desert, a small team of men and women in civilian clothes are staring at something on a screen that none of them were supposed to see. They had a device. Not a weapon or surveillance tool, not a bomb, a window. And through that window, they were watching something that should have been impossible. They were watching the future. Multiple futures. And in almost every single one of them, one specific event kept appearing over and over, like a bruise that refused to heal. Before we talk about what Project Looking Glass is, we need to talk about what it isn't. It isn't a movie or video game. It's not the plot of some sci-fi novel your coworker keeps recommending at Christmas. Project Looking Glass is, according to a growing number of former intelligence personnel, military contractors, and people who clearly had something better to do with their careers, a classified United States government program to observe, model, and potentially interact with future probabilities. Now, before the skeptics in the comments close the tab, hang on, because this story doesn't begin in conspiracy forums. It begins in the U.S. Army's own documents. Recently, I covered the Gateway process. For those who didn't watch that video, in 2003, a document titled Analysis and Assessment of the Gateway Process was quietly declassified. It went viral a few years ago, written by Army Lieutenant Colonel Jim Wayne McDonnell. It was a serious academic analysis of altered states of consciousness, out-of-body experience, and buried in its appendices the theoretical mechanisms by which human consciousness might interact with the space-time fabric itself. The U.S. Army was not writing science fiction. They were writing a classified report that described human consciousness as a non-local phenomenon, one that existed in some measurable way outside the bounds of linear time. That report was the surface. Project Looking Glass was what came after. The name Project Looking Glass first entered public discourse, not through a leak or a hack, but through a man named Dr. Dan Barish. Barish claimed to be a microbiologist who worked at a classified installation in the Nevada test site, specifically at a location he referred to as S4, a detail that aligned with accounts given by other whistleblowers about the same facility. His claims were extensive, detailed, and deeply strange. He described a device, sometimes called the Looking Glass, that used a series of rotating rings and torus-shaped electromagnetic fields to bend or rotate what he called the fabric of space-time locally, creating a kind of probability window. Through this window, according to Barish, operators could observe not a single fixed future, but a branching probability field. A spread of potential timelines, each with different weights, different likelihoods. The device didn't show you what would happen. It showed you what could happen and assigned each possibility a relative probability. Sounds familiar? It should, because in 2024, quantum physicists at major research universities are publishing papers about exactly this kind of probability-weighted many worlds framework. The language is different, the context is more respectable, but the underlying model is remarkably close. Barish was not alone. Bob Lazar, whose claims about a facility called S4 predated Barish by over a decade, and whose account of the facility's location was later verified by independent investigators, described a similar device. Lazar's account focused more on propulsion technology, but he mentioned almost in passing a capability he described as looking at time, a phrase he didn't elaborate on but never retracted. Then there is Bill Wood, formerly known as Bill Brockbrader, a former Navy SEAL who claimed to have worked with looking glass technology in the early 2000s as part of a group tasked with interpreting probability outputs. His testimony introduced a detail that no one else had mentioned and that became perhaps the most significant part of the entire story. Bill Wood's claim was this: at some point in the late 1990s and into the early 2000s, the probability outputs of the looking glass device began doing something unprecedented. The branching timelines, the spread of possible futures that had always shown variation, always shown divergence, began converging, not collapsing into chaos, not showing some catastrophic singular event, converging toward a single point. The operators ran the device again. They adjusted the parameters. They checked their methodology. They brought in other teams to verify the results. The timelines kept converging. And the point they were converging toward, the single future that appeared inevitable across every probability model they ran, was an awakening. Not a disaster, not a war, not the end of civilization. A shift in human consciousness. Wood described the response to this discovery as something close to institutional panic. Because here's the problem when your probability machine tells you a particular future is inevitable. You can no longer use the threat of that future to control people. If the outcome is locked, if the shift is coming regardless of what any individual nation-state, intelligence agency, or power structure does, then the entire apparatus of control built around managing future possibilities becomes obsolete. The machine had, in a very real sense, looked into the future and seen its own irrelevance. But there was a second discovery buried inside the first, and this one was stranger still. According to multiple accounts, Barish, Wood, and others who have spoken under various levels of anonymity, when operators attempted to observe timelines further out, beyond a certain threshold, the device began returning unusual results, not corrupted data, not equipment failure. The device was detecting something looking back. Multiple accounts describe operators who spent extended time working with the device, reporting what were classified internally as observer effects, phenomena that suggested the act of observation was itself altering the probability landscape. The future, it seemed, was not passive. It was responsive. To quantum physicists, this concept isn't new. The observer effect, the principle that the act of measurement changes the measured system, is one of the most replicated and least understood phenomena in modern science. But the looking glass accounts suggested the effect operated not just at the subatomic level, but at the level of human intention directed toward future events. which is another way of saying consciousness doesn't just watch reality, consciousness creates it. Here's where most coverage of Project Looking Glass stops. The conspiracy forums get excited about the classified device, the whistleblowers, the government panic. They speculate about what the events in the converging timelines actually looked like. They debate whether it was real or fabricated. They miss the point entirely. Because the truly significant revelation inside the Looking Glass story, the thing that explains why this technology was classified at levels above nuclear weapons, isn't the device. It's what the device demonstrated about you. The most suppressed finding in the Looking Glass reports, the detail that explains the institutional terror more than any other, was this. The device worked better when the operator was in a specific altered state of consciousness, not a drug state, not a hypnotic stupor, a coherent, focused, intentional state. A state that ordinary human beings, not specially trained operatives, not augmented subjects, not elite personnel, could access through practice. The Looking Glass technology didn't work on its own. It worked as an amplifier, a focusing lens. The operator's consciousness was the active component. The device simply created conditions under which that consciousness could be projected forward along the probability vectors. You already possess the active component. You have always possessed it. Governments classify technologies for predictable reasons. National security, strategic advantage, competitive dominance. These are the official explanations, and sometimes they're even true. But there's another reason to classify something, a reason that doesn't appear in any official doctrine, but that intelligence historians have identified again and again throughout the 20th century. You classify something when its existence would fundamentally alter the way ordinary people understand themselves. Nuclear weapons were classified because their power was unprecedented. But Looking Glass, if the accounts are accurate, was classified because of a different kind of power. Not destructive power, generative power. The power of a human being who understands that their consciousness is not a passive observer of a fixed reality, but an active participant in the continuous creation of it. A person who knows this cannot be easily manipulated, cannot be convincingly told that their inner state is irrelevant, cannot be persuaded that the future is something that happens to them rather than something they participate in building. That kind of person is, from the perspective of any system that depends on manufactured consent, a problem. Multiply that person by 1 billion, and you begin to understand what the Looking Glass probability models were actually showing. The controlled studies on human intention and its effect on physical systems are not classified. They're published, peer-reviewed, largely ignored by mainstream media, but available to anyone who looks. The Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research Lab, PEAR, operated from 1979 to 2007 under the leadership of Dr. Robert Jahn, the former dean of Princeton School of Engineering. For 28 years, using rigorously controlled experimental protocols, PEAR researchers demonstrated statistically significant correlations between human intention and the behavior of random event generators, electronic devices designed to produce truly random outputs. The effect sizes were small. The critics were loud. The lab was eventually closed, though notably not because the results were disproved, but because, as John himself stated, the data had spoken clearly and the institution had decided it didn't want to hear what was being said. Global Consciousness Project, an ongoing international collaboration involving researchers at dozens of institutions, has been running since 1998. It monitors a worldwide network of random event generators and looks for global coherence events, moments when the outputs of these geographically dispersed machines begin simultaneously to correlate. The most significant correlation event in the project's history occurred on September 11, 2001, beginning approximately 4 hours before the first plane hit. Before. 4 hours before. As if the global field of human consciousness had already registered what was coming. This is not fringe science. This is the published data of a decades-long research collaboration, and it points to the same conclusion that the Looking Glass accounts suggest. Human consciousness is not contained inside a skull. It is not bounded by a body. It is a field, a non-local, time-transcending field that connects individuals to each other, to the larger world, and in ways that current mainstream physics cannot yet fully model, to the probability landscape of what is to come. Theoretical physicist David Bohm spent the second half of his career developing what he called the implicate order, a model of reality in which everything that appears separate and sequential at the surface level of experience is actually deeply interconnected in an underlying domain he called the hollow movement. In Bohm's model, what we experience as linear time, past, present, or future, is an explicate unfolding of something that exists in its totality in a timeless implicate domain. All possible futures already exist, enfolded in the deeper order. What we call the present moment is the point at which consciousness participates in the process of unfolding, of making explicit one particular thread of what is already implicitly present. Bohm was not writing philosophy. He was writing physics, peer-reviewed, institutionally affiliated physics. And what he was describing is a universe in which the future is not something that approaches you. The future is something you approach. And the approach is conscious, and the approach is yours. Here is what the Looking Glass story actually teaches us, if we let it. Not that there's a secret device in the Nevada desert, though there may be. Not that governments suppress transformative knowledge, though they do. Not that whistleblowers are heroes or liars, or both simultaneously, though all of that is true. The Looking Glass story teaches us that the mechanism which the device was designed to amplify the capacity to project consciousness forward along probability vectors, to collapse specific futures from a field of possibility, to actively participate in the selection of which timeline becomes real, is not a classified technology. It's a birthright. Every mystic tradition in human history has described some version of this. The Vedantic concept of the witness consciousness that stands prior and participates in the arising of experience. The Hermetic principle that the mind is the first cause of all physical manifestation. The Kabbalistic understanding of consciousness as the activating force that moves through the tree of life from pure potential into material reality. What Looking Glass did, if we take the accounts at face value, was build a machine to measure something ancient, and the machine confirmed what the ancients already knew. Consciousness chooses the timeline, not random or passive, actively, intentionally from a state of coherence. The Looking Glass operators who produced the most reliable and significant probability readings according to the accounts were not the ones with the highest security clearances. They were not the most technically trained. They were the ones who could achieve and sustain a specific neurological state, a state characterized by coherence between heart and brain, measurable via heart rate variability patterns that the HeartMath Institute has spent 30 years documenting and correlating with enhanced intuition, expanded awareness, and what their researchers describe as access to information beyond the ordinary bounds of time and space. A state characterized by what neuroscientists call gamma synchrony, high-frequency brainwave coherence across multiple regions of the cortex simultaneously, observed in long-term meditators, and associated with what subjective reports consistently describe as a sense of expanded presence, of being both fully here and somehow larger than here. a state characterized by what the heart math researchers call the heart-brain dialogue, a two-way conversation between the electromagnetic field of the heart and the neural architecture of the brain, in which the heart leads and the brain follows, and the resulting coherence produces effects on the measurable world around the person in that state. You know this state. You've been in it. The moment you stood somewhere beautiful and felt for an instant that you were not separate from what you were looking at. The moment before sleep when time seemed to dissolve and you became aware of a much larger version of yourself moving through much larger spaces. The moment of creative breakthrough when the solution arrived not from effort, but from a kind of receptive stillness that you couldn't have described beforehand. Those were not random neurological events. Those were moments in which you were operating as the device was designed to operate, as the universe intended consciousness to operate. Now let's activate the looking glass within. Close your eyes. Take one breath, just one that's already arriving now. You're not looking for anything right now, or trying to achieve a state or unlock a frequency or activate a dormant capacity. You're simply noticing what is already present. The field you live inside, the vast probability space that surrounds this moment, like water surrounds a stone in a river. Notice that you are already inside the looking glass. You've always been inside the looking glass. Every moment of your life has been an act of timeline selection. Your attention, your inner state, your dominant emotional frequency broadcasting forward through the probability field, collapsing specific futures into experience. Every moment of worry was a form of timeline selection. You chose that. Every moment of genuine excitement was a form of timeline selection. You chose that. Every moment of deep love, of certainty, of knowing beyond knowing, timeline selection. You've always been the operator. You've always been the device. Now direct your awareness forward. The way you look toward the horizon, simply turning, allowing your attention to extend. Somewhere ahead of you, in the probability field existing right now, fully formed, complete in every detail, is the version of your life in which what you most deeply want has already arrived. It exists. The looking glass would find it. The probability models would register it. This is a timeline, it's not a dream. And your only task, your one and only job right now, is to increase your probability of entering it. By coherence, by becoming in this moment the version of you who is already receiving it. Feel what version of you feels like. What do they feel like as a person, as a being, as a presence in the world? That feeling is the mechanism. That feeling is the looking glass output. That feeling is the probability collapse. It's the timeline selection happening in real time in your body, in your field. The convergence the operators found, the single point every timeline was moving toward, was not an event. It was a recognition. The recognition happening in human beings one at a time and then in great waves, that the power they had been searching for outside themselves was the power of their own consciousness finally understood. You are part of that convergence. The fact that you are here, that these words are landing somewhere in you that knows they are true. It's not a coincidence. It's timeline selection. That is looking glass. That is you. Project Looking Glass, whether you believe every detail of every account, whether you treat the whistleblowers as credible sources or interesting fictions, whether the device exists in a hangar right now or never existed at all, Project Looking Glass points to something real. It points to the same thing that the Princeton anomalies data points to, the same thing that the Global Consciousness Project data points to, the same thing that 30 years of peer-reviewed consciousness research points to. the same thing every wisdom tradition in human history has pointed to. Your consciousness is not a passive spectator of a fixed reality. Your consciousness is an active participant in the ongoing creation of a reality that is responsive, malleable, and in the deepest sense, yours. The government may have had a device that demonstrated this. You have something better. You have direct access. You can find all episodes of The Reality Revolution at therealityrevolution.com. And welcome to The Reality Revolution. Welcome to The Reality Revolution. I'm Brian Scott, and I wanted to invite you to an amazing event that I'm putting together. In May, I'm taking a small group of people to Maui, and what we're going to do there over 4 days could genuinely be the most consequential experience of your entire life. May 14th through the 17th, 2026, the Westin Maui Resort and Spa, Ka'anapali Beach, 4 days, 225 people, one shared intention, shifting into your greatest timeline. Here is why 4 days matters. You've had breakthroughs before. The shift opens, the frequency lands, you feel it completely in your body in the way that the world looks different for a few days afterwards, and then it fades. It has nothing to do with the quality of your work. It happens because the new identity was never given enough time to become your nervous system's permanent default. A single weekend opens the door. 4 days lets you walk through it completely and close it behind you. This is what we're doing in Maui. I'm so excited.
I've been a fan of Brian Scott's for years, and the opportunity to see this event live exceeded my expectations.
I'm so grateful to be here. I've been listening to Brian's stuff for 2 years. I'd say Brian really changed my life. I told Brian I probably couldn't, I definitely couldn't afford, but when I first started listening to his videos, I couldn't even afford this one. But just listening to his videos all the time, just getting into that abundance flow. All right, so then I should talk about actually being here. So I was able to get the ticket to come here.
So I just came out of this meditative state. I was on the Zoom with Brian and everybody else in the love frequency, tapping into the energy. All of a sudden I could feel like my hands glue, like they just glue, like glowing with white light. I could feel the love, the energy just flowing through me. It was magnificent. I felt
The number one experience is to see him in person and to experience, his true, genuine self, his light that comes out, and all the love that he's doing it with. That's the most impressive.
So I've been on a journey for a while, and not deep stuff. I'm pretty reserved, conservative, but I'm spiritual since I was from birth. My mother raised me. But I came across Scott's thing, and it started pulling me in, and I got pulled into some other things, but I never had this sense around me that I was really seeing or feeling it. I have moments where things happen, and I really believe that things were happening to me where I had my future self, just following Scott. But when I came to this Friday and Saturday, I couldn't see anything. Everything was kind of weird.
On the first day, we will have a pineal gland activation. We will do energy work on opening your energy centers. And by the end of the day, we will do the bliss body meditation, which is absolutely transformational. I take light through every single aspect of your body, and you walk away feeling completely healed and transformed. On the second day, you will meet your higher self, who guides you into a vision of your greatest timeline. And then we do a quantum jump, where we quantum jump into this amazing reality that your higher self shows you. And then in that reality, you meet your future self. You converse with them, you get downloads from them, and you merge with them. You become your future self. This completely changes everything. This is where the whole event comes to its culmination. And on the third day, I will teach you how to navigate this new version of you as you shift. Once you get an idea of what can happen and how it works, we will work with the quantum heart, and you will learn how to remember your future. And then on the fourth day, we do a large sums of money meditation, which as a group is absolutely phenomenal. Then we do an opening to love meditation, which will change your life. And we conclude with a new earth shift meditation. This is the day where the internal change begins to express outwardly, and the shift is completely and totally permanently made and sealed into your energy body. You will leave this event with the shift as your baseline. The new version of you is simply who you are now. That is the 4-day journey. Now, on Saturday evening, we have a special surprise. Paul Selig is joining us for a live 90-minute channeling session. Paul Selig, internationally renowned channel, author of the I Am the Word series. The guides have been speaking through Paul for decades. You've heard me interview Paul several times, but you've never heard Paul channel for a complete hour answering questions. And he does these amazing attunements in the group, which you can viscerally and tangibly feel. In a group of 225 people, this is going to be mind-shattering. I cannot wait to experience it. Kyle Boyd from the Heart Coherence Collaborative will also be there. He has been an amazing addition to these events. He's helped me so much, and he adds so much. It's truly phenomenal. And the setting is very powerful. I chose this. I've stayed here several times. The Westin Maui Resort and Spa, Ka'anapali Beach. There's 6 pools, full spa, 5 restaurants. This is the kind of place your nervous system relaxes into the moment you arrive. It is a portal. It is wonderful. Now, I know if you go ahead and look this up, you're going to see that the rooms are very expensive, but we have obtained a huge discount on these rooms, 75% in many cases. You'll be able to get these rooms at an affordable discount as long as you are able to purchase a ticket. Staying on site is amazing. There's so many different things that will happen with this event. Your ticket also comes with over $400 in bonus content, 11 items included with registration, 3 activation recordings to prepare you for the event. We will send you a future self identity shift activation, downloads from your future self, the most powerful timeline shift you'll ever experience, 2 exclusive guided meditations, quantum jumping into your ideal life, future self integration, 4 audio guides, a beginner's guide to timeline shifting, a beginner's guide to quantum jumping, a guide on how to timeline shift, and a new you navigation system, and a digital copy of my book, Activate Your Unlimited Power. All of that is included with the ticket. The event is designed for the person who has already been in this work but hasn't quite been able to achieve the shift that they want. If you're that person, if you have a desire, then it's available to you. I am telling you now, anything that you want, anything you want to experience, any wish can be fulfilled. There's no limit to what is possible for you. And I've created this event so that I can take you in a container and bring you to that place where everything happens for you. And I want to see you there. I cannot wait to share this experience with you. You can find the link down below. I look forward to seeing you in Maui. I can't wait to share this experience with you.